Pilcher. I am a licensed professional counselor here at Transformations Counseling. Yeah, so I have my own personal experience with mental health growing up and my own journey with it. And post my bachelor's degree, I worked in the child welfare system and I saw a need and want to work with people more individually outside of that system and combining my passion for mental health and wanting to help people. I ended up here. Yeah, so I have experienced both sides of the coin of I've been to bad therapists and I've been to good therapists. And growing up, I was with therapists who weren't trauma informed and caused me more harm than they did good. And so I had a negative view on therapy for a long time. And then once I met people who were in therapy with good therapists, and then I myself tried therapy again despite the fears that I had, and I was matched with a really good therapist who met me where I was at, who was authentic and trauma informed. And I saw the way that my work with her helped transform my life, and I better understood why people found refuge in therapy and found that a place that it found that it was a place that they could show up authentically as themselves and have somebody on their side listening to them and challenging them when they need to be challenged and grow and have that support as they grow. I am a very integrative counselor, but I would say I am grounded in three different theories. The first being the ecological systems theory, which is this idea that we all have these systems in our lives, from our immediate family being our microsystem to all the way to like a chronosystem, which are things that happen over time. And it talks about how, you know, your parents' experience at work and how that indirectly influences you. So I'm very into understanding the systems in people's lives so I can understand the context which they are coming to session with. What are the cultural influences based off their systems and identities and all of that. The second is I really am rooted in feminist theory. I believe in empowering my clients, which is my big takeaway from that theory, is recognizing again the different systems that exist in our society that tend to oppress a lot of people, and how can I empower my clients or help them empower themselves more likely to live their lives authentically. And then the third would be narrative therapy, which is this idea that we are told stories of how we are supposed to live and how we are supposed to experience things, and we get all this input from other people. And then narrative therapy is how do we reauthor your own story? How do we dig into what your story written would look like? How do we externalize problems? So it's not that you are a person who struggles with, say, self-harm. It's that self-harm is the issue, not you. And how do we reauthor that story? So those are the three I root in, but I do pull from a lot of different theories depending on what my clients need. So the first step with me is that I want to have an open conversation with my clients about what are your goals and how is whatever you're coming to therapy for impacting your current day-to-day life functioning. How's it impacting your relationships? How's it impacting your work, your household? What are your goals for therapy? What are goals that I may think of that could help improve your functioning in these various aspects we've talked about? And then how do we come together with goals that are realistic, in tune with what you want, and also will help with whatever symptoms you're coming in with. And then from there, I just work with like a scaffolding approach of like small step by small step. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I don't want you to come in thinking that you have to tell me that you did something perfectly. You're not going to get graded in therapy. You're not going to get an A in therapy for doing everything right. I expect there will be times where you don't do things, or you fall back, and that's just the process. And so small steps and really taking the time with my clients to reflect on how far have you come rather than getting caught up in like how far you want to go. So really taking the time to reflect on like those small steps seem small, like they add up over time, and just making sure that you're taking time to realize that as we're going through the process. So my first sessions always start out with just me introducing myself, and then I go through confidentiality with you, and I talk about what it means when I say I work from a health at every size lens and a harm reduction lens in terms of multiple areas that could come up during our time together. And then following that discussion of those things, I kind of preface that it's going to be awkward and probably a little uncomfortable. I'm a stranger to you, and I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of invasive questions that are for me to get to know you better and understand your context and why you're coming in and your background. But I always preface, like, like it is awkward, and I am not expecting you to feel comfortable fully doing that. So if there's any questions that I ask that you do not want to answer, just tell me I don't want to answer that right now, and we'll move on. I want you to feel comfortable, and I want to focus on building a good relationship with you. And part of that is knowing that you have autonomy in the session to answer what you want to answer and not answer what you don't want to answer. I enjoy working with ages 12 and up. I typically around 12 to 30, 35, but I see people above 35, and I've seen kiddos below 12 before, and I've enjoyed my work with them as well. I love working with a lot of different communities. One area of community that I really love working with is the LGBTQIA community, because that's community as well. So I feel a special connection to understanding how identity can shape our impact, or shape or impact our experiences in the world. And I typically prefer individual therapy, but I also love running groups specifically around areas that are kind of my specialty. Some of them lend well to group formats and some don't, and so it really depends. But the areas that I kind of focus on therapeutically and in research and things like that are eating disorders and disordered eating, along with that, like weight stigma, body image. I'm really into complex trauma and PTSD, and kind of talking about like how does trauma manifest in our lives, and with that, coping skills that we typically see in more trauma cases like suicidal ideation or self-harm behaviors. And so those are kind of like my areas. I also enjoy working with people who are dealing with chronic pain, and how that's impacting their lives. And yeah, I have a lot of clients with a lot of different areas, and those are kind of my specialties, but that doesn't mean I'm limited to it or don't know about others areas as well.